You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode 245. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I'm going to talk about why people believe things that do not serve them. So why do we believe things that hurt us? Why do we hold on to painful rules, narratives, and all of these other thoughts when there's no evidence that they're even true? Well, in this episode, I'm going to dive into some of the unconscious reasons that people cling to beliefs that cause suffering. There are actually some hidden psychological payoffs of staying stuck in stories that don't serve you, and I'm going to go over them. So I want to start out by giving a little personal story here. So for a long time growing up, well before I got into coaching, I had this recurring looping thought in my brain. And it was this thought that I don't matter. It just would always show up, just the thought, I don't matter. Another one of the thoughts I often had was that people don't care. So it was, I don't matter and people don't care. I don't matter, people don't care. And I felt like if I ever were to draw attention to myself, that it could bring on judgment, criticism, or rejection. So my system adapted by staying quiet and reserved and self-contained. That was my form of protecting myself. There were things about me that I learned to hide at a pretty young age, not because they were necessarily wrong. It just was because I thought if I was fully visible, that it wouldn't be safe. For example, being gay was part of that for me, but it wasn't the only factor. I didn't feel like I had much of a voice overall in my family. I didn't feel like I didn't have much of a voice in jobs that I had. So over time, I just internalized this idea like it was better to stay in the background and blend in than take up space. And this is how I navigated my environment because it kept things very predictable and safe for me. So my mind learned this quiet rule, which was my voice doesn't matter. I don't matter. People don't care. And here's what's important to understand. And this is true for so many people. The mind doesn't automatically just update some old belief or rule that you have. All of those same strategies that once helped you survive can actually quietly follow you into adulthood. So fast forward several years, and I went to start my own coaching business, but I noticed these thoughts just kept coming back. I don't matter and people don't care. Whenever I wanted to put myself out there as a coach and make offers and network and market myself, I thought, why would you do that? You don't matter and people don't care. So it was at this point when I realized, okay, something needs to give here. And I looked inward and thought, well, why am I having these rules and why are they following me throughout my life? Where are they even coming from? Because they didn't feel necessarily true for me. They just were familiar. And in the academy, I describe this as having an expired rule. Like sometimes we have these rules about ourselves that they just no longer serve the purpose that they once served. So I call them an expired rule. They once made sense, but they no longer match your current reality. So when I realized that, it was a big turning point for me. And it helped me stop having this judgment for myself for having these so-called negative thoughts. And you might notice yourself having certain negative thoughts, and maybe you or your clients have judgments on yourselves. Like, why am I thinking this? I know that this doesn't serve me. And I want you to know if you have thoughts that you cling to that are negative, it doesn't mean that you're broken, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. You're just being loyal to a strategy that once made sense to you. And the moment you see that, you'll no longer be trapped by that story. You'll be able to stand next to it. And that's really where your choice begins. So I want you to identify and reflect on this for a moment. What is a belief you have about yourself that's followed you for years, even though maybe your life has changed? What's still a heavy, draining belief about yourself that maybe you know has kept you kind of within, kept you small? And it's this thought or belief has followed you for years. It might be the thought that you're not good enough or that you don't matter or that you're too much. Maybe it's thoughts about putting yourself out there, like if you take up space, you'll be judged, or it's just safer to play small. Maybe it's thoughts about pursuing your dreams, like, oh, don't bother trying because you'll just fail. Maybe when it comes to dating or love and relationships, you might have this negative rule or thought that you are not lovable, or you don't deserve love, or that people don't really care about you. Now, as coaches, it's really important to understand why people sometimes cling to negative thoughts, because if you don't understand this, you'll unintentionally work against your client's nervous system. You'll just think, oh, let's just reframe this thought, or let's just slap on a positive affirmation, which is such surface level coaching, and it often backfires. So when a coach is able to understand that there is actually a purpose for painful narratives, then you will coach way more effectively. You're not just going to try to rip away beliefs from your client. Instead, you're going to get more curious and slow down and recognize that when a client is letting go of a thought, that is a form of uncertainty for them. And that could be perceived as like danger to a client. So this is why coaching, at least impactful, powerful coaching, is way more than about just putting a positive thought in place of a negative thought, right? When you can understand what I'm talking about here, it'll help you create more of a safety around uncertainty that your clients experience. And this is why in Thriving Coach Academy, we go deeper into this in our advanced training. A lot of our students nowadays, they have some basic understanding of like foundational coaching tools, but I think it's when we get to our advanced coaching tools that concepts like I'm talking about here really shine and really allow you to step into the powerful coach you know you're born to be. So what are the reasons that people cling to negative thoughts? There are two main reasons, and those reasons are familiarity and protection. There are other reasons, but those are the most common, the ones that I want to just address for this episode. So when something is familiar, the brain prefers it. There's that primitive part of our brain that likes when things are predictable. Even if it's not the thing that's going to make you happy or fulfilled, the primitive part of your brain goes, well, at least I already know this thought. At least I already know this feeling. And the brain could prefer that because it recognizes it, even if it hurts, over risking an unknown. Like, ooh, even though this new thought could be really positive, it's still unknown. And therefore, there's still a little bit of fear with it. It's one of the biggest reasons why people cling to negative thoughts. It's because the familiar pain feels safer than the unfamiliar possibility. I'll say that one more time. The familiar pain sometimes feels safer than the unfamiliar possibility. Okay? Survival is about predictability. And when a thought hurts, even if it's familiar, the mind at least knows how to navigate it. If you let go of that thought, it's like, oh, this is scary. And the brain thinks that it registers that uncertainty as risk. So for example, let's say that somebody is looking for love and they're dating, but they're not really going on dates or putting themselves out there. They keep holding back because they just think, I'm going to get rejected anyway, so why bother? Right? That's obviously a thought that is painful to cling to, but even though it's a thought, it creates a hurtful thought. It creates a predictable story because the person thinks, well, I know how this is going to end. If they let go of that thought, I'll always be rejected. Then they face something scarier, which is, wow, what if I actually put myself out there? Then what could possibly happen? Right? There's an unknown there. What if I actually succeed and find love and I don't know who I'm going to be then or what's going to happen in my life then? So the painful belief of you'll always be rejected, it feels grounding and it just gives the mind something solid to hold on to. And we see this happen all the time in real life. People stay in unfulfilling relationships because at least they know the rules. At least they know how to play that game. Or people avoid going after their dreams because they think, you know what? It's just safer to stay where I am. I'm just not cut out for that. I'm just not going to be successful. So it's a lot safer to stay in that comfort zone than find out what you're actually capable of. And when you've thought something so many times, it starts to feel true. The thing about your brain is it's not evaluating your thoughts every day based on accuracy. Wouldn't it be amazing if your brain could look at every thought it had about yourself and go, wait a second, that's no longer true anymore. Wait a second, we don't need that anymore. The brain is just evaluating thoughts based on familiarity. So the more a thought is repeated, the more efficiently the brain fires that neural pathway and the more normal that thought feels. And this is why coaching is so effective, because it really is a way to slow down your thinking and have a professional coach reflect back and say, wait a second, how true is this thought that you're having? Let's look at it. Let's see what else could be true. When we're not in the space of another professional to explore our thoughts, then our brain is just continuing to fire off the same thoughts over and over just because they're familiar, not because they're necessarily accurate. And those repeated thoughts just become default, right? And sometimes people think, well, that's just who I am. That's just who my personality is. I'm just not someone who is confident. I'm just not the type of person who is in fulfilling relationships or is happy in their career. It's not because it's true. It's just because these are thoughts that have been rehearsed for years. So the brain just recognizes them and goes, okay, that's what we're going to keep, instead of thinking, wait a second, how true is this really? The other part of this too is a familiar thought. It's kind of effortless to think because it's automatic. There's not much conscious choice you put into it. But when you have a new thought, something that's more empowering, it actually feels very awkward. It might even feel fake at first, not because it's a wrong thought, but because it's just unfamiliar. So when I am connecting with our new students in Thriving Coach Academy and they are getting all excited about growing and launching their businesses, I introduce them to new thoughts like your clients are already waiting for you. And sometimes they go, wait a second, is that really true? It's so awkward to really believe that clients are already waiting for me. And it's because up until then, they were thinking that they'll probably fail or they won't attract any clients because that was just an already rehearsed familiar thought. It wasn't because it was accurate or true. It was just familiar. And the new thoughts like your clients are already waiting for you or your success is inevitable, which is another great thought to have. It's not that that thought is inaccurate. It's just that it's new. So therefore it feels unnatural, even though it can totally be realistic for you, right? If we were just to repeat the same exact thoughts, we would have the same exact life. You wouldn't actually grow, evolve, or have any form of fulfillment in your life. So you need to invite new thoughts in. You need to allow unnatural, weird feeling thoughts in order to move your life forward. Okay, so the other main reason that we have these negative thoughts is because they serve a form of protection. And this is really big. We cling to thoughts because they may have protected you at some point from some kind of perceived danger, right? They may have helped you cope, adapt, and even survive. So it's not a problem if some negative thoughts come up and they exist. The problem is if you still let it continue to run the show after it's needed. So for example, someone might have a thought, just don't trust people, right? Don't trust people because maybe you experienced some form of betrayal in some other chapter of your life. Or maybe you think it's better to just stay quiet because maybe if you spoke up in the past, you experienced some criticism or rejection and it was hard for you at the time. So you thought, well, it's better to stay quiet as a way to protect yourself from any other judgment. And this one's also big. You may have the thought, just don't get your hopes up. Don't dream big because maybe you have been disappointed in the past. So you want to soften other disappointment in the future by thinking it's just better to not get your hopes up at all. These were all strategies. These were all ways for your nervous system to keep you from experiencing something different or something painful. So it can feel reckless when you think about letting go of a thought that protected you in some way, right? Like I had that thought, people don't care, because that protected me from sharing my voice and putting myself out there and experiencing possible rejection or criticism. So it's easier just to hide behind that protecting thought of people don't care, right? Because that just feels like a safe little bubble to hide in. But if you want to grow and really live a life that's worth living, a fulfilling life, then we need to honor what these thoughts were for us and how they served you. Like, I'm so glad that I had that thought to cushion me and protect me at that time because maybe I needed it. But I'm still going to show up anyway. And I'm still going to put my voice out there, knowing that I'll be okay. Right? Your mind might think, but these thoughts kept you so safe. Don't drop these thoughts. Keep them. all of these thoughts are very well-intentioned thoughts. I think it's nice to also remind yourself of that if you beat yourself up. Think, wow, that's interesting. I'm having that thought that I should just not get my hopes up or that people don't care, that I shouldn't trust people. I'm sure that thought is well-intentioned, but it's no longer necessary. Now, I want to be clear too, as coaches, you don't have to trace every negative thought back to childhood or unpack where it came from in order to create change with your clients. Understanding why people cling to certain thoughts is for your awareness as a coach. It's not always for the client's analysis. So when we know that many limiting thoughts persist just because they were familiar once or serve some kind of protective purpose, then you stop trying to excavate the past and you can just start working on the present. Coaching is not about diagnosing the origin of every thought. It's about helping clients notice their thoughts and loosen their identification with those thoughts so they can choose something differently. Now, one of the common limiting thoughts that I've also seen newer coaches have is thinking, who am I to really coach others? I don't have anything to offer, right? You might hide behind that thought and question, really, who are you to coach others? And you might think you need an extraordinary life. You might think, but my life needs some fixing up. I still have my own problems to work out before I can be successful. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is just a protective thought. This is not really rooted in any truth, because the truth is you can be a work in progress and still make a huge impact on people's lives. You can be a work in progress and still make lots and lots of money as a coach. When you think about it, nobody's figured everything out, right? No professional is expected to have their entire life together in order to be successful. Just like your doctor doesn't need to be in perfect health for them to be a credible doctor. A therapist doesn't need to have a perfect emotional state, no trauma, no unresolved trauma in order for them to be a great therapist to others, right? So you can be a work in progress and your life doesn't have to be together, because nobody's life is totally together, and you can still be very impactful. So what happens when you loosen your identification with a thought telling you that your life has to be so perfect, right? It's going to be scary when you try on the thought I just shared with you, which is that you can be a work in progress and still make an impact, right? It's a little bit scary to start trying that on, but it's also amazing what becomes possible. So let it feel scary. Just because it is feeling scary at first doesn't mean that it isn't a thought that you can try on and live by. Okay, so I'm going to give you some other questions that you can use with yourself and clients whenever you notice a negative thought comes up. Now, we have an extensive process we teach our coaches. The rulebook coaching method is our signature tool. It's the most efficient, most powerful way to create breakthroughs with your clients, to address these negative thoughts that people cling to and create space for more empowering thoughts. So I'm not going to go too deeply into it here. That's what we teach our students about and give them feedback on when they use it in sessions. But I am going to introduce you to some questions that could be helpful to help loosening attachment to negative thoughts. Okay, one question is, how has this thought protected me in the past? So what did this thought protect you from? What might it be trying to protect you from right now? Another great question is, who would you be without this thought, even for a moment? Who would you be without this thought or story? Another question is this thought helping you move forward, or is it helping keep you safe? Is this thought helping you move forward, or is it helping to keep you safe? And finally, what would you do differently if this old belief weren't in charge anymore? What's an action you would do if this belief weren't in charge anymore? Now, these questions, they're not meant to eliminate that old thought. I want you to really notice that. It's not meant to eliminate the thought. These questions are just meant to restore agency. And that's what really powerful coaching is about, restoring agency in your client's life. So if there is one thing I hope you take from this episode, it's that you're not clinging to painful thoughts because you're broken or weak. You're doing it because your mind is wired for familiarity, protection, and control. At least part of your mind is, right? Any negative thought sticks, not because it's true. It's just because it was familiar. It once helped you feel safe. And when you see that, those thoughts lose their authority. They no longer become facts. They just become patterns. And we all have those patterns. You don't have to get rid of these negative thoughts to move forward. You don't need to argue with them. You don't need to think positively all the time. Real change is going to happen when you just stop letting the familiar pain make the decisions for you, right? When you learn to notice a thought, just understand what it's protecting or trying to protect you from, and choose whether or not you want to keep living by it, that is where your freedom starts. So the next time a painful narrative shows up, don't ask what's wrong with me. Don't ask yourself that question. Nothing's wrong with you. You're human. Instead, ask yourself, why does my mind want me to believe this right now? And do I still actually need it? Right? Let that awareness create space. Let that space create choice, because those choices are where your real transformation begins. Okay, that's what I got in this episode on why we cling to negative thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're benefiting from this podcast, then please leave a 5-star review and share this episode with someone who you think would enjoy it. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with an interview that I had with one of our coaches that went through Thriving Coach Academy, so you can hear about their experience and also some of their tips for how you can become successful as a coach. Enjoy their story, and I will see you in the next episode.
My name is Grant Holford. I am the Western Regional Sales Manager for a Swedish tooling organization. I got into a leadership position about 10 years ago and was introduced to coaching through, HR and kind of was assigned a coach that helped me with my employees. From that, it sparked an interest in me of coaching and helping blocks with my employees for higher performance. That set me down the road to where I found Thriving Coach Academy. I had a couple of concerns. One was a time commitment because of my full-time work. It's one of those things where you just need to jump in and go. If you want something bad enough, if you're passionate about it and this is your calling, I really kind of just said, okay, if this is my calling, I need to do it. And it doesn't matter how much time I'm going to do it. I tend to do a lot of research when I'm making big decisions in my life. So I spent quite a bit of time looking at different organizations. I started by going through the ICF and looking at accredited organizations. I went through each one and kind of laid out, okay, here's the strengths and weaknesses, and this is what I was looking for. What I found with Thriving was it was a well-rounded program that wasn't just segmented into one thing. It had a really robust program, and it seemed to me to be the one organization that had the most to offer. Before I joined Thriving, I've been coaching for several years, or at least I thought I was coaching. What I was doing really was mentoring. So when I got into the academy and I started to learn all the techniques and the specialties, it completely changed my world and how I interact with my employees, also with my coworkers, family, everyone. So to be honest, my mind was blown when I really learned the power of coaching and what it can mean to my life. It's significant. With Thriving, this is not a passive program where you can sit back and observe. You're invited to get engaged, get involved, and participate in the process of learning with others. The staff at Thriving Coach Academy is far none the best training organization that I've been through, and has been very caring, engaged. They honestly want the best for you, and by doing that, they're going to challenge you. And it's fun. It's certainly a very introspective kind of process where you're going to learn a lot about yourself. I can't thank enough of the staff at Thriving for what they've given me in this gift. So as a sales leader, I've had an interest in coaching, and going through this program, I'm finding that my team is much more engaged and their performance is much more elevated. This is something that not only is working in my organization, but is something that my company wants to do throughout. I've also found that coaching for me is giving me a path moving forward where I can grow as an individual. I can grow within this organization. I also have a future of being a coach full-time within this company, or the possibility of expanding my own personal business in the future as a side hustle or as a career. So the personal changes that I've recognized is that my listening skills and connection with the people is through the roof. I feel like I am more connected with everyone that I come in contact with on a daily basis. So that has really been transformational for me. The patience I have with others and the questions that I'm asking seem to be more meaningful, and that generates more connections and just better relations with everyone. I've seen it in my work life with my employees and people that I work with in my organization. I've felt that on a personal level with my wife, and our life together is we've never been more connected, to even my family and friends. You cannot not afford to do it. It's something that will be certainly meaningful to you in your life, give you a career that will be fulfilling, and not just a career, but a calling.
Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.